Hey Jason, it's Andrew. So it's my understanding that your goals include regular physical activity to gain any kind of physical and psychological benefits, but while also doing that, not putting yourself at an unnecessary risk of injury. So that's why I planned for you today a 15-minute movement hygiene session to bring you even closer to those goals by increasing your passive hip and shoulder flexion range of motion. I'm impressed with how well you already move, but we can get you even closer to your goals by making you move even better. Your results from the mobility and physical literacy screen indicate that you may lack passive hip and shoulder flexion range of motion. So going to the mobility screen, you weren't able to maintain lower back control during any kind of hip flexion exercise, suggesting that you may lack passive hip flexion range of motion. Also, you received a score of 8 out of 15 for back control during the physical literacy screen. This suggests that increasing hip flexion is a goal because anything below 11 out of 15 raises a flag. Going back to your results from the mobility screen, we can also see that you weren't able to meet the shoulder flexion range of motion criteria. Thus, beyond simply physical and psychological benefits, increasing your flexion range of motion in these two joints may put you at a reduced risk of injury during your daily tasks, future exercises, or even playing with your kids. For example, improving your hip flexion range of motion may help you prevent or reduce rounding your back during your long commutes to and from work, preventing spine injuries. This is why this session is relevant for you, Jason, in achieving your goals. The session is going to start with 30 seconds of squat to dumbbell presses. So you can use really light dumbbells. And the goal here is simply just to warm up your muscles in terms of temperature, especially the muscles that are surrounding the two joints that we're targeting, so that your muscles are more pliable, it hurts less, and you're also at a reduced risk of sustaining a muscle strain injury during this hygiene session itself. Then I plan for you to hold 4 passive static stretches for 45 seconds each side, left and right, adding up to 8 holds per round. And we're going to do 2 rounds in total. The first stretch is going to be kneeling shoulder tractions. So you've already done shoulder tractions before in the prior movement hygiene session, but this time we're going to be kneeling, and then make sure that the band or the rope that you're attaching or you're holding onto is at least head height when you are kneeling. The second stretch is going to be supine knee extensions. So similar to supine hip flexion where you raise a straight leg, you're going to raise a bent leg. You're going to hold onto your leg behind your knee, and you're going to try to extend your knee while maintaining the movement standards. The third stretch is going to be kneeling overheads. So you're going to be on your knees facing the opposite direction that you were facing for the shoulder tractions. You're going to attach the band or the rope behind your arm, and you're going to work on bringing your arm towards that flex position and holding that. The fourth and final stretch is going to be supine hip external rotations. So you're going to simply lie down your back once again, and you're going to try to bring your foot as close to your chest as possible while maintaining the movement standards and pushing your knee out. What I would like you to focus on is really pushing yourself to stretch the relevant muscles while maintaining the movement standards. Aim to maintain a RPE, so a rate of perceived exertion of 4 the entire time. I plan for you to take up to 10 seconds to transition between warm-up, different stretches, and the cool-down, and only 5 seconds to switch between left and right sides within a stretch. After going through 2 rounds of the prescribed stretches, your session is done. Be sure to keep the maintenance of the movement standards in mind, even when you're not exercising. So cleaning up and taking down the equipment after your workout could be a great opportunity to immediately practice the movement standards that we're working on here. Here's a video demonstration of the session. I'm going to be using the app Tabata to keep track of the time.
Alright, so once again, the primary objective of the session was to increase your passive hip and shoulder flexion range of motion. My general thoughts on the design of the session was that it was really well done because it's easy to follow for one, and also because it addresses the session's objectives. I'm not trying to be biased, of course, because I am the one who designed the session, but I genuinely think that not much can be changed to bring you closer to achieving your goals. Even while I was doing the session, I kept in mind what works, what doesn't work, and how I try to imagine how you would feel doing these specific exercises and these specific times, intensities, and all that. And I was also thinking of what can be changed to make the session even better. One thing that I did think of was that instead of doing two 45-second sets, I was thinking of doing three 30-second sets instead, because especially during the shoulder tractions, it was a lot more intense than I expected it. And if I pushed myself to the same extent that I pushed myself during the other three exercises, then I probably would have elevated my RPE to a 6 or a 7 even, when 4 was the target. On the contrary, though, I did think 2 sets of 45 seconds worked well because, once again, like it was discussed in Dave's classes that end ranges of motion should be held for at least 90 seconds to elicit stretching of the targeted muscles. And besides elevating the RPE too much, I realized that it might be possible that you might not be able to hold the stretches with the same amount of force for a greater amount of time. So maybe, for example, 90 seconds. I found this out when, for example, I was doing the supine hip external rotates, that it was hard for me to, or I struggled. I got it done, but I struggled to hold my leg up with the same amount of force because my grip strength was lacking. So other muscles that we're not targeting may actually be limiting the muscles that we are targeting if we were to increase the length to 90 seconds straight. The selection of exercises worked well because, once again, they hit the session's objectives. Both supine stretches were done, so the ones that were done on the floor, they work to stretch out your hamstrings and your gluteus muscles, and these muscles may be limiting your hip flexion range of motion. So stretching them out may lengthen them, make them less tight, and ultimately make your hip flexion, or help you able to reach greater depths during hip flexion. For both the kneeling stretches, they work to stretch your tricep and your lat muscles, and these muscles may be limiting your shoulder flexion range of motion. So once again, stretching these muscles may help you increase your shoulder flexion range of motion. I actually did the mobility screen and physical literacy screen myself, and based on our results, we actually have very identical or near identical mobility and physical literacy and ability to maintain movement standards as well. So like not just the letter grade from these screens, but also to what extent can we both flex at the hips before losing back control, for example. So those would be very similar between us two as well. So that being said, I expect the execution of a session from you to be similar to the execution that I demonstrated. For example, during the shoulder tractions, I would expect you to be able to maintain back control and reach similar shoulder flexion ranges as I did. For example, during the mobility screen, I struggled to maintain back control as well. But this exercise, the height of the rope might assist in your ability to maintain your back in a neutral position. And as well for shoulder flexion range of motion, like once again, the height and the help of gravity might help you to flex at the shoulders basically as much as I did. So yeah, overall, I expect to see similar kind of execution from you as I demonstrated as well. Yeah, that was it. Nice to meet you, Jason. I hope everything goes well. Bye.